I want to talk about why I don't pay attention to the news and I don't get involved in politics. So, I used to listen to national public radio constantly, and I do miss the human interest stories, but I don't miss the news stories. And right before I got into recovery, I stopped listening to the news, and it actually has everything to do with how I hit my codependent bottom and got in recovery. So, if you haven't heard this before, the thing that caused me to hit a codependent bottom and landed me in recovery is that I invited my homeless friend Dan, who I had met through church, to stay in my home one night during a snowstorm. And he did. And then I invited him another time and another time. And within a few weeks, he was practically living with me. And then I eventually felt trapped in my own home. But in any case, Dan, as a homeless person, didn't have access to music. So when he was in my home, he wanted to listen to music. And I was like, holy shit, this is way better for my nervous system. So I started listening to music and stopped paying attention to the news. And that ended up being perfect for the runway for me to start getting into recovery and paying attention to the things that I was doing in my life that were causing my nervous system to get dysregulated. I wasn't aware that it was nervous system dysregulation in the very beginning, but it's because the news really sets off my nervous system that I get really worried and I get upset about all different kinds of things. And I do want to say also that I am a sociologist by training. I have a master's degree in sociology, and I came out of grad school with the idea that I really wanted to work towards leveling the playing field. And it was very clear from a sociological perspective that things need to change at the macro level, at the level of like institutions and stuff. But one of the things I learned there was also that it's at the micro level, it's at the level of individual interactions where we weaken and disrupt those macro structures. So I got a job working at Yale University as a program coordinator for urban education because I really wanted to put my efforts into the world of education because I felt like that was where we had the greatest hope of leveling the playing field because at least we have structures and systems for education. I also always believed that entrepreneurship holds great hope for leveling the playing field, but we don't really have like institutions in place for that. And so when I left my career at Yale, I actually kind of got into the world of entrepreneurship, but that wasn't planned. It just so happened to be that way. In any case, as a sociologist, I really felt like it was important now that I understand how things are working. If I want the world to change, then I need to do something towards it. And it doesn't mean that that attitude has gone away, but my personal recovery and my nervous system regulation and my healing has taken precedence over that. And so the reason this is coming up at this particular moment is that this past weekend, or this past week, I spent time with one of my oldest friends and my dearest friend from graduate school. And I was telling her, yeah, I don't really pay attention to the news. And she said, the only way that shit is going to change is if informed people do something. And I said, you know what? That's true. And I protect my nervous system. So I do not pay attention to the news and I do not get involved in politics because it's not good for my nervous system. And my nervous system regulation is a high priority for me. And I believe deep inside of me that me having a well-behaved nervous system is actually better for the world. The world is better served when Barb has a stable nervous system. So this is partly because I'm no longer creating all kinds of fucking chaos in the world around me, and I'm not exacerbating the chaos around me, but mainly it's that I am able to be a stable force and a stable presence in the realms in which I am. And I just thought of something that I heard Thich Nhat Hanh said. If you don't know who he is a Vietnamese monk. And he talked about when refugees were leaving Vietnam in droves, that if there was a boat and there was one stable person on that boat, it made all the difference in the world for the people on that boat. Everybody wasn't just losing their shit and freaking out. So one stable person in an environment can actually anchor a group of people. And it can also anchor other people as well. So, my friend and I both came out of grad school, we're anti-racist, we're, anti-patriarchy, we're anti, homophobia and transphobia and, anti-classist, and really want us to take care of the fucking environment. And we've always had conversations about this stuff. And I'm like, I can't do it anymore. Even though she and I agree politically, I'm just not going to get involved in it because it just doesn't serve me. And really taking care of my nervous system does. Well, I just had an experience a little while ago tonight after a 12-step meeting where someone was very, very, very upset. A lot of her childhood trauma is coming up, and she was really upset. And I was able to hold her and hug her and just say, just let it rip, just let it out, and hold on to her and receive that from her without it in any way, even like a little nick on me. It did not dent me or impact me in any way. I was not at all triggered. I was able to really be there and receive for her the way that all of us really wanted, needed, and deserved our parents to be there for us when we were little children, but they weren't able to do that, probably because they were adult children too. So I don't pay attention to the news, and I don't get involved in politics or in political discussions, even with people that I agree with. And if you want to judge me for that, you go right ahead and do that. And it's funny, the first 5 years that I was not paying attention to the news and politics, I would say to people, I'm on hiatus from that. And after 5 years, I was like, it's not a fucking hiatus. I don't pay attention to the news and politics. And when I looked at that, like, why am I saying that? It was because I care so much more what other people think of me than what I do. And I've grown massively in that regard. I care way more what I think of me than what other people do, but there's still a little bit of it here and there. But back then, that was like 4.5 years ago, I definitely still cared more then than I do now. And so I was afraid that people were going to judge me as ignorant and uninformed. And God forbid that, because in my family, like, being dumb, the worst thing ever, right? But here's what I realized. I am ignorant and uninformed. So go ahead and judge me as being ignorant and uninformed, because I'd rather be ignorant and uninformed and have a stable, peaceful life and have a stable nervous system most of the time than be informed and feel like my insides were on fire all the time. So that, my friends, is why I do not pay attention to the news or get involved in politics or controversy.